Good morning. Good morning. This church has always been blessed with such beautiful music. It's good to hear it. In lieu of recent events in South Carolina, a story is on my heart that I want to share with you. And I think we all know what happened this past week in Charleston. I'd like to tell you about a man named Brown. There was a man named Brown who was in the last waning months of World War II in a trench in Germany. And his platoon leader was happy because he had Brown. You see, none of the men had been hurt. They were still intact in that platoon. And the captain gave credit to a young man who was 18 years old who was his secret weapon. Brown could learn languages in a matter of days. And as they went through Europe, this young genius was able to learn German and French and Italian and Polish. And so when they would go into a town, and the captain, before they went to battle, would look at his binoculars, he would call Brown over, and he'd report to his commanding officer and tell him what he saw, and he could interpret all the signs. And it was pretty handy to have around, and the captain said, "Young man, I need to tell you, as someone who's been around the world, that you have a gift. And when this war is over, you need to go back to college, to a university setting, and not only get your degree, but you need to teach. You have a gift." Brown smiled, and that was his day of affirmation. That was the day that, in his heart, he realized when this is over, he is going to be a college professor and share his intellect and genius with the world. Well, the war ended, and Brown came home. First thing he did was reunite with his high school sweetheart, and they got married. And they talked about his future at the college, and then they had a baby, and then they had a baby, and then they had 4 or 5 babies. And Brown found himself not going to school, but taking jobs, making ends meet, feeding his family, and he did the right thing, but over a period of time, he began to develop a bitterness about him. He was angry. His dream had been interrupted. He took to drinking a little bit too much, and he locked himself away from his family. In fact, at one point, he took his little garage, and he locked the doors, and he started to build shelves in there, and people were curious, what was Brown up to? And what he did was he went around to thrift stores and to garage sales, and he bought books. And he built the library of his dreams, but no one was allowed to see that library. That was his place. That was his secret place. That was his dream in that room. Sounds strange, what a paradox. A man who did what he could at minimum wage to feed his family, but in his delusional state, he saw this library as a university setting, and he locked himself away with his drink and his books, and the years rolled by. One time the door was left unlocked, and Brown went into his library and found a little 9-year-old boy sitting on the floor crying. It was a neighbor's kid. The kid was crying, and he said, "What's wrong with you? Or what are you doing in my library?" And the little boy cried out, "I can't read." Then he had a book in his lap. "I can't read." And Brown just stared him down, and the little boy cried and said, "The teacher said my brain is backwards." And Brown recognized that this child had something newly diagnosed back then called dyslexia. And he looked at the boy and he said, "Come back tomorrow, school starts tomorrow. Now get out of here." And that little boy was me. Over a summer, he taught me how to read. He had a series of mirrors set up, and he worked with me, and slowly the world turned, and I was able to make sense out of these jumbled words. And that was a small part of the story, but every time I read the gospel, every time I study the scripture, I think back that if it wasn't for Brown, I wouldn't be able to do that. And as the years started rolling by and kids began to grow up, there was a Goliath in Mr. Brown's life, and that Goliath was bitterness and prejudice and anger, all stopping him from being near the Lord. Did I mention he was prejudiced? He had a term that I won't use because I'm a gentleman and this is a holy place, but for every minority group he had a name. He did not like black people. He did not like Jewish people. He had a disdain for Spanish people. And he would shake his fist at them. For you see, when we all grew up and left the neighborhood was changing. It became a neighborhood of color. And he was not happy. As the story goes, locks were placed on every door, and Brown began to sit in his front porch with a shotgun. The beautiful 2-story house across the street was bought by a family of color. And there was a 12-year-old black boy who decided he was going to sit in his front porch like Brown did. And it was a face-off. One with a shotgun, one with oversized black rimmed glasses and a broom. And they stared each other down every day. If it wasn't so sad, it would have been comical. But it happened nonetheless. This went on for quite some time, and finally one night, while Brown was sleeping, they heard a sound in the house. Someone was breaking in the house. And as they heard the rustle on the other side of the house, he grabbed his shotgun. He ran into the library. When he turned on the light, there was the neighbor's boy, the boy with the broom, looking ever so guilty. Brown went into a rage. He racked his shotgun and fired off a round, and the little boy ran down the street. He was running for his life. He ran for his life until he ran into an intersection, and a car ran over that young boy. That was the day that Brown had his first heart attack. Life had been pretty rough on him with his drinking and whatnot. No surprise that he had that heart attack. But you see, a few days later when he woke up in the hospital, he looked into his wife's face, and he was not met with compassion and love and concern from that face. He was met with anger, smoldering anger. He looked at her and said, "What happened?" And there was a wheelchair waiting for him. She made him get in it. She wheeled him to the intensive care unit. As he entered the intensive care unit, there was that young man laying in a bed in critical condition, but awake. She pushed him toward the bed and left him alone, the young boy. They stared at each other for a while, as they used to do on the porch. Awkward and uncomfortable moment. Finally, Brown asked, "What were you doing in my house?" And the boy began to cry. He said, "I didn't steal anything, I was leaving something." And he reached under the blankets and he pulled out a Bible. And he said, "Brown, Mr. Brown, sir, you didn't have one of these in your library. And you look like you were hurting. And this book takes away the pain. And my mama raised me to share this word with everybody who's in pain." It was a humbling moment. Brown had his moment. In that moment, he was conquering bitterness, the fear, the prejudice, the Goliath of his life. The ego dropped, the delusional character was gone. He asked the young man to read the book to him, and so began a relationship. A relationship where this young man, when he healed and came home in his wheelchair, sat next to Brown in his wheelchair and walked him through Holy Scripture and walked him toward receiving Christ in his life. But that's not the end of the story. There was a time when there was a lot of traffic because there was construction, and the detour would lead people through that old neighborhood. Driving through the old neighborhood, I decided to take a peek at my old house, Brown's house. And that was the day that my heart was touched, because the garage door was open. It was open. And there were all the books, and there were chairs set up, and children of color and culture, and they were being taught by a professor in a wheelchair with no legs, and a pointer, and the world's largest smile on his face. God gave Brown his dream of being a teacher, but not for himself. You see, he had to be broken before he could use the gift. His Goliath had to be slayed with one stone, not five. One stone. That little boy threw it. It had perfect aim, in perfect faith. So why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because what I want each and every one of you to do, you see at my church I give homework, so I'm giving homework today. When you go into your prayer closet tonight, and I pray that you all have a prayer closet, I want you to be honest with God and ask Him to shine a light in every dark recess of your soul. And ask Him what your Goliath is. What is it? You can't slay it unless you know what it is. Ask Him to show you your Goliath. Take that one stone, and in perfect faith, 24-karat faith in Christ, throw your stone. Destroy your Goliath. Destroy everything that's separating you from God. Mr. Brown had about 5 or 10 more happy years in his life, but they were excruciatingly happy. They were spectacular. He couldn't stop talking about the Lord. I pray that each and every one of you have those years. God bless you all.